Nsfw. What is the most fucked up act of humanity that you know of? Please like and subscribe to support this channel. Jasenovac concentration camp. Jasenovac was a death camp that operated during WW2. Unlike most of the Holocaust, this was run by the Croatian Ustase regime, and was even more disgusting and brutal than the death camps operated by Nazi Germany. Even though they had gas at their disposal, the Ustase often opted for more brutal means, such as live incineration, iron bars, throat cutting, and just too many to list here. Here is the wiki. Nazis exterminating millions of people. Jews weren't the only people they exterminated. They also killed gypsies, the retarded, gays, and many other undesirables. See World at War series made in 1974 where they interviewed people who were there. There was a whole episode about it. Saddam Hussein executing undesirables by putting a grenade in their front shirt pocket. I can't remember who, but someone in Africa putting burning rubber tires around people's necks. US military secretly giving withholding viable proven treatment for black people with syphilis on purpose. Tuskegee. Syphilis is the only bacterial disease so nasty it leaves scars on the bones, so archaeologists can tell if a person had syphilis. And a lot of medieval monks had syphilis. None of the men infected was ever told he had the disease, nor was any treated for it with penicillin after this antibiotic became proven for treatment. FEMA ignoring thousands of Katrina survivors in New Orleans for weeks on end. Then providing them trailers with poisonous formaldehyde fumes to live in for years. FEMA is supposed to be there when stuff like this happens and they totally drop the ball. The Catholic Church covering up 1980s child abuse cases for decades. They are supposed to be the moral leaders of the world and they pull that shit? That is seriously messed up. Rape of Nanking, China. WW2 Japanese soldiers raped and killed 40,000 to 300,000 unarmed civilians, and took pictures of it. See sidebar, contest to kill 100 people with a SWR-D, between two Japanese officers. They also sliced babies in half, thirds, and quarter 29. Where to start? A veritable plethora of filth. 1. Things people do for money. The milk, drugged baby beggar scam. The drugged, waking up in bathtub missing organs, parts of Hostel, movie. Pretty much anything to do with Nestle the company, in Africa especially. 2. Things people do for research. Unit 731 of Imperial Army of Japan, Joseph Mengele and his experimentations. MK Ultra or whatever the current version is called. 3. Things that happen, because apparently, humans are sick fucks. Africa in general, but also specifically. The inter-tribe genocides of the 80s through to now. Both world wars. The baby girls left on the side of the road in China, because they are not boys. Man's general non-humanity to man. TLDR no links provided. Too depressing. Watch people die. The state of South Dakota appears to be seizing Lakota children under questionable circumstances. Some of these children are being physically and sexually abused, and at least one criminal investigator says that the state is covering it up, all possibly because they get a lot of money from the federal government via Title IVE. If you want to join me in calling for investigations, please do so. Action opportunity. Investigate the appearance of a culture of corruption endangering Lakota children. Little Thai boys and girls as young as 9 prostituting themselves out because it is legal there and they need money. The meat industry and the treatment of the animals that are slaughtered. The milk cows. The chickens that lay eggs. The Cove in Japan. Orangutans will be shaved and dressed up as women and used as prostitutes. Animals, dogs in particular, are so loyal to their humans that they won't even attempt to run away from a piece of shit that beats them on a daily basis. Nanking, Unit 731, Genghis Khan, the SS, the Holocaust, slavery of all kinds. Anything war-related, anything done in the name of religion. The lost prophets. Dude Junko Furuta. If you are an animal, child, woman, or really anything weak, you are going to have it harder in this world than others. Fuck this place. Seriously. This list isn't anywhere close to the amount of things that should be mentioned and remembered. It isn't fair, but nothing is or ever will be. Thanks to watch people die. I don't think I'll ever be able to think of something as fucked up, ever again. When you've seen someone necklaced or beheaded or cannibalized while alive and awake, nothing can compare. One guy one jar is a lol in comparison to seeing a guy have his genitals removed and fed back to him. Someone losing an eye in a bar fight is vanilla compared to a woman in the Middle East having a baby hacked out with a machete because she looked at another man and he could be the baby's dad. This world is full of crap, it's also full of good. I have also seen a man give his kidney in an altruistic donation because a kidney transplant costs thousands of dollars but a life is priceless. I have seen a man spend decades carving a mountain by hand because if it gets someone to hospital fast enough to save them, then their life is worth it. As shit as things get, they can get the polar opposite and be so good. Food fight. Imagine if someone decided to make Who Framed Roger Rabbit for food mascots, but couldn't get the rights to the mascots, got really bitter about not being able to get the rights and thus made XP versions that were horrific or disgustingly insulting to the rights owners of the proper versions, coupled with CGI that scares me. And then add into the fact that there are people who have drawn Rule 34 of the aforementioned scary design characters. 2 girls 1 cup *******. Now when I have your attention. ******. 1992. The war in Bosnia just started. I was 10 years old and we were fleeing our hometown. The smell of rotten flesh was everywhere. My brother next to me pissed his pants and stopped talking for days. He was just 5 years old, and he has seen so much shit already. During our fleeing there have been multiple airstrikes on our convoy. We tried to get shelter in some houses, but no one wanted to let us in, probably out of fear that we will plunder them, or just because we were a different ethnicity. Whatever, we hid where we could, and some places haven't been really sanitary, to be honest. After a week of moving from place to place and village to village, we finally found shelter on a soccer stadium in Croatia, Slavonski Brod. Croatians have been our allies at that point in time. A group of 700 women, seniors and children, with a bunch of armed men who stayed with us to protect us. We even got some food and a place to wash ourselves. To the fucked up part. 2 hours later, our own allies started to grenade the shit out of the stadium. We hid where we could. I still remember the basement of the building under construction next to the stadium where a group of us fled, mostly women, children, toddlers. The floor was covered in shit. It was probably used as a toilet. Due to lack of a more private option, I shut my ears, but could still hear the sounds of agony, pain and grenades, and the fucking smell of shit up my nose, the feeling of shit on my feet and hands. They wanted to slaughter us, women, children and seniors. I regret answering this question. War brings the most fucked up shit out of humans, and let the little psycho in one of 100 roam freely without fear of consequences. The Battle of Kalka River. Prelude. A Rus prince killed a bunch of Genghis Khan's envoys, then lost the ensuing battle, and was captured. So the Mongols had this thing about killing nobles, that they should be killed without spilling blood. So the Mongols tied these nobles up, laid them out on the ground, and then built a big wooden platform on top of them. Then, they filled the platform with tables and chairs, and had a victory feast, while the men below were crushed and suffocated. Never forgot this. I grew up China, and I have seen some things, but this one story always stuck with me. I was on a subway with my mum and sisters one day, when the usual beggars made their way through the carts. Then, behind the regulars, there was a new woman. She walked up and was crying, saying, in Mandarin, that she needed money for her son, please etc. etc. We assumed she was lying. She wasn't. Behind her appeared a boy. His skin was melted, it was so severely burned. I had never seen anything, and to this day still haven't, like it. I tried everything in my power not to stare, and I was overcome with a mixture of terror, disgust and sadness. Anyway, eventually the two of them passed us and we got off the train. That's when my mum said to me, "That's the one thing about China I cannot accept." "What?" my sisters asked. "Well, that boy wasn't born that way and probably wasn't in an accident. His mother, if that's who she really is, probably did that to him so it'd be easier to get money from sympathetic people." I don't know how true it was, but a few months later one of my mum's coworkers told me a similar story. It's always horrified me. Torturing and disfiguring a child so you can get a few extra yuan. That's the most fucked up act of humanity. Anything done through greed. The rape of Nanking. Looking up what happens, it seems like something that humanity should be incapable of, but it happened and it's hard to understand how a fellow human being would participate in that. This really puts the Tumblrinas to shame with how they define rape. Young children were not exempt from these atrocities, and were cut open to allow Japanese soldiers to rape them, There are also accounts of Japanese troops forcing families to commit acts of incest. Sons were forced to rape their mothers, fathers were forced to rape daughters. If there was ever an example of rape being used a weapon, then this is it in its most disgusting. In all honesty, it's stuff like this that will forever stain humanity's history on this earth. The United States in the Middle East. The media lies to its viewers, our government murders political figures that are attempting to stray from US policy to improve their country's standard of living. Civilian casualties range from approximately 133,000 to approximately 1 million. All because a fake rebel group that the mainstream media created allegedly attacked us on our own soil. We can only portray ourselves as the good guys for so long. Inevitably, history will remember our country as a cancer. Soon after the rest of the world realizes that the monetary gain that our country provides to those who obey is not worth the large cancerous tumor that we have become on our own planet. We will no longer be able to rewrite the history books in our favor. This country was founded on rape and murder. It's no surprise that we are keeping this tradition alive. The Mongolian conquest of pretty much everyone they contacted is a bit terrifying. They completely decimated China, Russia, and the Islamic world with very little effort. The stories of how they conquered these people is fascinating from a modern perspective, but I can't even imagine what it would have been like to go up against these guys. After sacking a city, each soldier would be given a specific amount of civilian prisoners to behead. In order to have middle-aged efficient killing machine. They were also known to relay to the besieged peoples that if they laid down their arms and professed loyalty to the Khan, they'd be spared. Then the Mongolians would send these same, spared, people back into the city to fight any resistors, putting families and friends against each other. Their reasoning was that they wouldn't be losing any valuable soldiers this way. There are countless atrocities that the Mongolians committed. It's hard to even keep count. Genghis Khan was referred to as the Scourge of God by himself and most of the people he encountered, and that should speak volumes on its own. Japanese human experimentation during WW2. To determine the treatment of frostbite, prisoners were taken outside in freezing weather and left with exposed arms, periodically drenched with water until frozen solid. The arm was later amputated. The doctor would repeat the process on the victim's upper arm to the shoulder. After both arms were gone, the doctors moved on to the legs until only a head and torso remained. The victim was then used for plague and pathogens experiments. I worked for the United Nations in Kosovo for a few years right after the war there. The municipality I was stationed in had a mix of ethnicities that made for some major post-war tension and horrible acts of retribution. The majority ethnicity in the area wanted to force an old lady from the other ethnic group out of town. She was one of the last remaining who hadn't already fled to evade general racial revenge. She hadn't fled because she was in her 80s, too old, too frail, and had nowhere else to go. Shitty people made a bunch of threats and vandalistic attacks on her house over a few months. When she wouldn't leave, one night they snuck into her house, beat her, gang raped her, impaled her through the vagina up into her torso with a sharpened mop handle, and burned the house to the ground with her in it. Treating other people as things. Every fucked up act you can think of ultimately comes down to thinking of people as things. To get more specific, any deliberate murder of strange children. Killing one's own children is horrendous, but at least there's a connection there to make it an emotional thing. Being able to look a child in the eye, with whom you have no history, and kill them is just. It's fucked up.